Hello BookTube. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Fairy Tale by Hiro Mashima. So far I have read the first through 18th volumes of Fairy Tale. This is my third or fourth reread of the entire series, and I have to admit before I go further that I'm not enjoying this reread as much as I did my reread last year. But that's a subject I'm going to talk a bit more about with weekly reads. So in this video, I'm only going to focus on talking about the series, run over some of the arcs, and talk about the characters. Although I will also talk about which story arcs I particularly like, and some story arcs that I am a bit more critical of. So, Fairy Tale was a long-running manga series. It lasted for 600 chapters in 63 volumes. It was published weekly in Weekly Shonen Magazine, which is a manga anthology series. In Japan, manga is usually published in a big phone book sized anthologies that include a large number of manga and other things as well. Although I've never actually had a copy of any manga magazine, so I cannot say for sure what it looks like. I did have something of an American version of it about 15 years ago, but how it compares, I don't know. But back to Fairy Tale. So, Fairy Tale is set in a fantasy world where a small percentage of the human population are capable of using magic. These people are called wizards. Many wizards join together in businesses called guilds, where the individual wizard or wizards, if they're working in a team, will go on various jobs. There is no guild in the Kingdom of Fury as infamous as Fairy Tale. And no Fairy Tale wizard is as infamous as Natsu Dragneel. Natsu is a fire dragon slayer. He can incorporate fire to enhance his physical attacks. He can also eat fire to increase his own stamina and abilities. Natsu was raised by a dragon named Igneel, who disappeared before the series begins, and Natsu found his way as an orphan to Fairy Tale. Natsu travels Fury with Happy, an anthropomorphic blue cat, who is later revealed to be a member of the Exceed species of anthropomorphic cats who have the magical ability to develop wings. In the first chapter, Natsu and Happy are looking for Igneel and have heard rumors of a wizard in the city of Harjian. Also in Harjian at this time is a young celestial spirit wizard named Lucy, who is looking to buy keys. Celestial spirit mages use magical keys to summon celestial spirits to fight for them. And Lucy wishes to join a guild. One of her options is Fairy Tale. So Natsu, Happy, and Lucy meet in the crowd surrounding Salamander, who is not a dragon. He is a human. And he seems to be something of a criminal wizard, initially. And so Lucy treats Happy and Natsu to lunch and then is fooled by Salamander that he can get her into Fairy Tail because he's a member of Fairy Tail. Natsu overhears this from another young woman, and Lucy ends up on Salamander's yacht, which is actually revealed to be a human trafficking ship. And Lucy and the other young women who are on the ship are going to be sold into slavery. Natsu drops in, and Happy rescues Lucy. Lucy then uses her strongest celestial spirit, Aquarius, to wash the ship ashore. This allows Natsu, who had been kind of rendered incapable of doing anything because he has extreme motion sickness on moving vehicles, to defeat Salamander's goons and ultimately Salamander himself. And come to find out, the actual Salamander that Natsu was looking for was Natsu himself. And so after this adventure, Natsu invites Lucy to join him in Fairy Tail, which is the subject of the second chapter. And then in the third chapter, Lucy accompanies Natsu and Happy to rescue a fellow guild member named Macau, who had gone to suppress some monsters in the mountains near Magnolia, where Fairy Tail is located. And then the fourth chapter deals with Lucy getting her an apartment in Magnolia, and Natsu and Happy convincing Lucy to join them as a team. And this first volume ends with them going on a job. So that job where the group are hired to steal a book from a corrupt aristocrat takes place during the first half of the second volume. The second half of the second volume and all of the third volume include is a storyline in which the strongest woman in Fairy Tail, Urza Scarlet, who has the ability to change out magical armors and weapons, overhears that the Dark Guild Eisenwald is up to something, whose ace is Aragorn, this guy in the back. So Urza, wanting to find out what they're up to, recruits Natsu and Natsu's frenemy, Gray, who is an ice make wizard. He basically makes weapons and stuff out of ice, to help her investigate. Lucy is asked to tag along, and of course Happy joins as well. And they discover that Eisenwald is planning to use a cursed flute to assassinate local guild masters, where Makarov himself is. He's the guild master of Fairy Tail. And so the group ultimately defeat Eisenwald, and then the manifested version of the flute called Lullaby. The fourth volume begins with the after effects of the aftermath of this event, as Urza is scapegoated for the incident. And the rest of the fourth volume and the fifth volume and all but the last two chapters of the sixth volume feature Natsu, Happy, and Lucy going on a forbidden quest. So in Fairy Tail, most of the jobs are on the first floor and are open to everybody. But the more dangerous, the more time-consuming, the jobs that require a higher level of skill, intelligence, and power are on the second floor, where most members are forbidden to go. And Natsu is goaded by the fact that he's not as strong as Ursa, not as strong as some of the stronger male wizards, such as the Master's grandson Laxus, that Natsu decides to steal a special S-class request. And Lucy ends up tagging along because one of the rewards is a golden key, which is a key to one of the zodiac spirits. Gray goes to stop them and is dragged along, and later Urza comes to drag them back. So on the island, they are confronted by people who believe that they have been transformed, cursed to become demons, and they think it is because of magic coming from the moon. While they explore, they discover that a mysterious group has arrived on the island and are collecting moon magic to dispel a ice prison that is containing a demon much like Lullaby. And that the leader of this group is a former student alongside Gray's of a wizard named who specialized in ice make magic. And so there's confrontation between the two groups. Also, Leon is teaming up with some former members of a different guild called Lamia Scale. And so there's confrontation. Urza is convinced to help defend both the village and to defeat Leon and his group. And ultimately, Urza's intelligence resolves the actual conflict. So in the final two chapters of Volume 6, the group return home to Magnolia and find the guild severely damaged in an attack by a rival guild called Phantom Lord. So Fairy Tail's war with Phantom Lord comprises the last two chapters of Volume 6, all of Volumes 7 and 8, and the early parts of Volume 9. So Phantom Lord has long had a rivalry with Fairy Tail, but Phantom Lord has been hired by Lucy's father to bring her home. And the master of Phantom Lord, Jose, is using this as an excuse to crush Fairy Tail. Under him are 5 incredibly powerful wizards. 4 of them form not quite a team, but a grouping called the Element 4. The most prominent of these 4 is Juvia, who represents water. And the ace of the guild is a dragon slayer, much like Natsu, called Gijil, although his abilities are centered around iron. So after back and forth in the war, Fairy Tail emerges triumphant and Phantom Lord is disbanded. The rest of Volume 9 is centered on Lucy as she goes to confront her father over his actions, and a simmering issue between her and a fellow guild member named Loki is resolved. And this volume really does a lot to characterize Lucy. The 10th volume, or the 10th through 13th volumes, the first part of the 13th volume features Urza being kidnapped by her former friends when she was a child and taken to a magical construction called the Tower of Heaven. Her friends are led by Urza's insane former best friend and crush, Jalal, who is an incredibly powerful wizard. He is this dude here, and he seeks to resurrect the evil wizard Zeref, and he plans to sacrifice Urza to do so. So the group, who at this point have become a team, are taking a vacation at a resort, thanks to Loki, when Urza is kidnapped by her childhood friends and the other members of her team are incapacitated. So the group, plus Juvia, who is in love with Gray, travel to the Tower of Heaven, and together with Urza's former friends, or childhood friends, overcome Jalal's servants, or a dark guild that Jalal hired, and ultimately Natsu and Jalal have one hell of a fight. And this volume, this story arc, really ends quite amazingly. So, from volume 13 through the beginning of volume 16 is the Fairy Tale Civil War. There's a festival going on, and Fairy Tale is deeply involved in it. And it's during this festival that the master's grandson, Laxus, decides to launch a coup against his grandfather. And he's joined by three powerful fairy tale wizards who form something of a bodyguard, more of a groupie team called the Raijin-shu, or the Thunder God tribe. They're led by a young man named Freed, and other members are Bixlow and Evergreen. So what they do is Evergreen uses her power to turn most of the women in Fairy Tale to stone, threatening to turn them to dust if the rest of the guild doesn't do what they want, which is to spread out across Magnolia and fight the members, Laxus and his group, as well as each other, because Freed has set a number of magical traps throughout the city that forces the members who fall into them of fighting each other. Natsu is the only one who's enthusiastic about this because he sees this as just a fight amongst friends, not recognizing it's a damn coup. Natsu, however, and Gajil, who has joined Fairy Tale along with Juvia, are incapable of fighting because of Freed's spell around the guild hall, which prevents Makarov from getting involved. And Laxus's demand is for Makarov to resign from as guildmaster and to appoint Laxus in his stead. Eventually, all of the members of Fairy Tale are taken out or trapped in the guild hall until Urza is freed. She then enters the fray and defeats Evergreen, who then unpetrifies the other girls, who then enter the fray as well. And one of the members, Levy, undoes Freed's enchantment over the guild. It's at this point that Laxus then launches a magical attack that would destroy all of Magnolia if it goes off. And then another major member of the guild, Mystigan, confronts Laxus. He's revealed to be a lookalike of Jalal's. That comes up in a later arc. Urza goes off to deal with the Laxus's magical weapon, along with the rest of the guild, and Natsu and Gajil team up to fight Laxus. At the end of this storyline, the Thunder God tribe are forgiven for their actions, and they begin to integrate more fully into the guild, and Laxus is expelled. And then there's a bit of some one-off chapters before the next big arc begins, which starts in volume 16 and goes through volumes 17, 18, 19, and I think into 20 or 21. Of course, I've not gotten that far, so I cannot give you much information on that. So, um, so during Jalal's operation, he and an ally, Ultir, destroyed the Magic Council. And so while the council is reforming, a number of guilds, including Fairy Tail, join up to take on one of the most powerful dark guilds in the underworld, the Oresian Seis, which is composed of only 6 members. And so the Oresian Seis is after an ancient magical weapon called Nirvana. And so the allied guilds, which includes our team from Fairy Tail, the Triman and Ichia from Blue Pegasus, Leon, Sherry, who was one of his co-conspirators in the Galuna Island arc, and the ace of Lamiaskel, Jura, as well as Wendy and Carla from Kate Shelter. Now, Wendy is a little girl and is a Sky Dragon Slayer like Natsu and Gejio are Dragon Slayers. And Carla is an Exceed like Happy. And so they are initially defeated by the Oresian Seis, and Wendy is kidnapped. And there's a reason why she's kidnapped. And then the group splits up to fight both the Oresian Seis and their subordinate dark guilds, and eventually each member of the Oresian Seis are defeated. And then the real big bad of this arc reveals himself. But again, that starts in volume 19, which I've not gotten to. So, so of these volumes, the one I really like the Eisenwald arc, particularly as the group, like how well they fight together. Well, particularly like Natsu's fight with Aragorn. I mean, that's just really awesome. Even if Natsu is sometimes, well, most of the time, an idiot hero, he does have a certain battle sense. But the one thing I really like about this volume is how, like, Natsu, Urza, and Gray kind of team up against Lullaby. I'm also rather fond of, really fond of the Tower of Heaven arc, where, because I like the fights, I like how Jalal's plan kind of comes together, his manipulations. Although he does end up being the beginning of the Zeref Paula, because it's like, Zeref's dead, then no he's not, he's just sleeping, and then no he's not that either. He just can't control his powers until he's really just done with humanity, but that's a story for a different day. And let's see here. It's And then that's just amazing. So, of what I read, I'm not entirely all that fond of the Gulana Island arc, largely because of Urza's character in this arc. She comes off as rather unfeeling towards the plight of the islanders, as well as initially Gray's unfinished business with his fellow student, until Gray fully stands up to her and cuts himself on her blade. And I'm also not all that fond of the fairy tale Civil War, in part because Laxus's motivation. Well, I understand Laxus's motivation. His obsession with strength just. I think there could have been something else that could have been highlighted as his motive, like why he's doing this. More of concern about the reputation of the guild, that while Fairy Tale is an incredibly strong guild with incredibly strong members, the problem is that they're incredibly destructive, they're incredibly over the top, that there's other reasons besides strength that makes them infamous. But Laxus, much like with Gajil when he was a member of Phantom Lord, they have negative traits of Natsus that are taken to an extreme that Natsu needs to overcome. Also, I'm not particularly fond of how Natsu interprets this whole thing throughout. It's rather annoying that he doesn't understand this isn't a friendly brawl between guild mates, that if it threatens to go too far, Makarov will step in. This is a coup that will see most of his fellow guild members either killed or kicked out of the guild if Laxus wins. That Natsu never really understood that annoys me. And while I do really like the Oresian Seis arc, the fact that it introduces Wendy is not one of my favorite things, because Wendy's not one of my favorite characters. And she ends up her along with Carla become members of Fairy Tale at the end of the Oresian Seis arc. And she's heavily involved in everything going forward. And I'm not particularly fond of her. So anyway, that's some of my thoughts on the first 18 volumes of Fairy Tale, although I do want to show you a few more images from volume 17. So one thing about Fairy Tale that Mashima does is he will often have information cards like this on the chapter covers, and he will also do some other things as well. I really like that. And then at the end, there's usually a whole bunch of extras, including an afterwards where Mashima jots down some thoughts, and a few other things as well. So there's the return of Jalal. That's Wendy. That's pretty cool. Then I really like this chapter opening. And sometimes some of the chapter covers will be colored. Although how exactly that's determined, I don't know. Now here's some of Gray fighting a member of Oresian Seis called Racer. And there's a really good one where like that, So yeah. So I'm going to go put these up, and I will see you, if not tomorrow, then hopefully Wednesday with a new video. But of course, I will see you certainly Friday with weekly reads, where I will give an update on how my reading a fairy tale is going, although not too in depth, as well as other things. So until I see you next time, BookTube, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.